We have Cyril Farrell and Paddy Stapleton with us this morning to talk to us about the weekend's hurling. Paddy, I want to start with you. Should Limerick have had a couple of red cards in the first half, and is that why John Cahill is so exercised about who's going to be in the change rooms, who's going to be in the stands and who's not going to be? Because it seemed like classic dissemination from a manager in the aftermath of a game.
Yeah, I suppose it's wise enough. He's in the gig a few years now, Ger. So probably a wise way to go with it. I don't know, would I give him a red card for it now? The only thing I'd say about Hegarty's is it looked bad, and then when you saw Joe Canning pull up his top and you could actually see the welt, that's never good. But the only thing I'd say is he was coming in 100 miles an hour, and he was coming in and he ducked his head just as he was coming in, because I suppose Joe was turning to strike hard. But I don't know what I'd given a red card for it now, to be honest with you. I think a yellow was a lot. I think it was careless, very, very careless. But he could see that Joe Canning was in a crowd, and he was like an animal in the corner. He was turning to just swing hard, and I suppose he dived in to try and get a piece of it. But probably wouldn't have given red card for it now. But certainly, I think we've seen things for less given, so maybe he was slightly lucky.
Have you, just very quickly, have you ever seen a challenge to give a red card for Paddy? Just as a matter of interest, for context here, for all our listeners, so they know.
Have I ever seen
a challenge that you give a red card for?
I have. I've seen my own challenges, unfortunately. I've gotten red cards for, so I've seen a couple, but I do think that one wasn't
okay,
the worst.
Fair enough.
But,
the wider point, though, I suppose, it looked like Limerick had Galway's number, and then all of a sudden Joe had 8 or 9 frees on the board, and that element of discipline where Limerick are clearly the superior force in matches, but for whatever reason they're just conceding frees, little flicks here, little flick there, a slap/hook that keeps the opposition in the game. Is there a way of fixing that without taking away the Tigers tackling and the pressure game that they bring?
I would say it's difficult to fix it, because I remember playing against Kilkenny back, I suppose, when they had that great team, and it was very, very similar. You remember a couple of All-Ireland finals with us, and it seemed like free after free, certainly in the first half until it opened out. But they have such physicality, and if they try to get too technical, I think they'll be under pressure. Now, I do notice every time they give away a free, it's as if there's a personal insult against them, but they certainly are warranted most of the time. But if I wouldn't hone in too much on that, because I think by the middle of the second half in a lot of matches, teams are punch drunk against them. They're just so physical, and I think for looking at the puck outs yesterday, which we might in a minute, that's the reason that Galway didn't go long. Is that if you let that Limerick team pin their ears back and just go as hard as they can at ball, I think you have very, very little chance of them. And I think their frees, it is a byproduct of that physicality. But for the last couple of years, I think the proof is in the pudding.
Sir, how will Galway feel about yesterday's game? Is it one that got away, or is it? I don't know. What will they think?
Well, they did well to stay in the game. I wouldn't think they think this one's got away, because I would think the feeling was that Limerick were the better team, and Limerick kind of left Galway in the game more or less with I suppose with Joe's free taking and even line ball taking. Galway were hanging on in the game, and you'd wonder at times how they were in the game, because after the first quarter, Galway started well, got top in the first quarter, but after that it was all Limerick. And if you looked at the bare facts of the game, like the Limerick goalie Quaid had no shot to make, whereas young Murphy in the goals, the new goalie from Galway, had plenty of shots to save. They were going for the killer goal. And as Paddy said there, Galway had a game plan to play the ball short, because it didn't want to play it long, but short or long, like when you're playing it short and the goalie pins it, the fella that gets it has to be 100% on to get it, because if he doesn't, it makes the goalie look bad. But even when they went long, they were beating it. But that's the way the modern game is. They had Pádraig Brennan back playing as sweeper, I call him, but they call him now 6+1, this new kind of a thing, but still for 7 backs, 2 midfield, 5 forwards. Your man short up front, and as Paddy said there, they were respecting Limerick, they knew the strength and the Limerick cohesion and the kind of the movement when they have the ball and they're all moving together, playing it long and short. They are the form team, and I suppose since the start of the season, they would be the favourites to win the All-Ireland. Now, okay, after the weekend, Waterford looked lovely, but they would have been the kind of favourites, never nice to win the All-Ireland, whereas Waterford, to be fair to them, are the surprise package of the championship, really.
So from a Galway perspective, they had to come up with some plan. They came up with a plan, and it nearly worked.
Yeah, they come up with a plan, like, and they play the extra backs and play the ball short and try to work it through the lines. They when it breaks, see when it works, it's lovely. When it breaks down, it looks terrible. And you'll have plenty of people in Galway saying, why didn't they go for the game? Like, maybe they gave Limerick too much respect. But that was the game plan, and you kind of have to stick with it. And okay, you have a second game plan as well. But they will say to you in Galway, in the lads and the team, probably that they were in the game with 2 or 3 minutes to go. It was level pegging. And during the game, like Joe was very lucky to get concussed, like an accidental tackle by one of his own men. But like the big loss was Cahill Mannion went off of the hamstring. But I'm not giving him his excuses. The best team won. Like Limerick will be probably going into All-Ireland in a good way. Like Paddy will agree with me, in a good way, in the sense that they didn't actually fire on all cylinders. The one kind of not playing really kind of as well as they can, which in a way is a good way to into an All-Ireland, because it gives John Cahill something to work on and to know to get their best performance in the All-Ireland.
How hard is it, in your view, Cyril, to actually work the ball through the lines? If it's hard to go long against Limerick, it looks like it's very tough to go through the lines as well. It looked like the goalkeeper was messing up on a couple of occasions. But I presume if you're up against the size of those Limerick men on puck-outs, it's a very hard thing to overcome. Yeah, well, you see, you have to kind of, it doesn't just happen in a month or two. You have to have a long time to walk through the lines. The first puck out has to be into the precision, but then you have to work through the lines. The next pass is great. If you would watch Limerick, they come in threes and they're good at working through the lines. Whereas in Galway got the ball loose, they looked up and they tried to maybe try to work it through the lines or try to hit it long. And it was kind of, you still had to fight for it. It's kind of as a halfway house. It wasn't really precision. Now, they did get a lot of good scores, but Limerick were more precise, and they are very, very good at it, and it's hard to stop them. Now, Waterford play much the same kind of a style in the sense, and they're very, very energetic, so it's going to be a fantastic final. Paddy, what were your thoughts on the Galway game plan?
I would have went for something similar, being honest, knowing what they have and their skill set. I don't think they're all out as fast as Limerick or as physical anymore. I think you're starting to see the Galway team waning. David Burke and Johnny Cohen probably in the middle of the field with pure engine room a few years ago, and now they're probably struggling to hang on to these young Limerick players. So I would have went something similar. But if you look at it, I think the execution just really wasn't up to scratch. I know Ian Murphy in the middle of, or in the goals, what he was trying to do, he was trying to fake long puck outs and maybe cut it to the left hand side. But I think the problem there is he was going to Hegarty's side a lot, and Hegarty is 6'5" or 6'6", and who knows what his wingspan is. So you have to be so accurate. And then he was absolutely fizzing them at lads. And if a fizz of a puck out is a little bit wrong, left or right or high, then it's actually gone away from you. Whereas if it's more of a lobbing trajectory, which people mightn't agree with, and you can run onto them, even if it's not 100% right, you can still make something of it. But just thought execution wasn't 100%. But that's very understandable. Young goalkeeper, first season, an empty Croke Park against one of the best defensive teams there is. I think it's very, very understandable, and I'm sure he learned from it. But I certainly think if you go along against Limerick every time, or certainly the majority of the time, it's kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You don't see it as obvious as when a sharp puck out goes wrong, but they'll end up just working up a momentum and they'll just run it back down your throat. So I don't see too much wrong, just maybe the execution.
That makes a lot of sense. And Cyril's point about it actually being the perfect result for the Limerick management team, it is interesting that, like, this is, I'm looking at the headlines, they're scratchy performance. It's like, they've got through to an All-Ireland semi-final. Granted, the game was close at the end, but no one really thought that Galway were going to pull it out. It would have been a big surprise, even when it got back level. So, I would like to be in Limerick's situation where I have this incredible team and I know what's coming for me in the final, and I've already beaten that Waterford team as well.
Absolutely. No, I suppose the only thing is it's sometimes difficult to beat the same team twice, and I think Waterford really have improved since that Munster final. They really look like they kicked up a gear in terms of looking for goals and looking for taking men on and really being aggressive. But as you said, I think John Cahill will be very, very happy. And do you know what? He seems very narky this year. I think that there's a real anger in Limerick that they didn't push on last year and beat Kilkenny in that semi-final. And I think they're really trying to, exact revenge on that. And so it's, in fairness, it is working well. The only thing he'd be concerned is I don't think they've hurled with huge fluency, like unbelievable fluency. They're not going to dominate a full match, but really, I don't think they've killed teams like they have over the last couple of years. But they're probably, the only worrying part for Waterford is that performance going to come in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, let's have a listen to what Shane ONeill had to say after his side was knocked out by Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final. There's loads of stuff in this that we just want to tease out afterwards. So here's the Galway manager, Shane ONeill.
Call was a loss, yeah, but when you look at the substitutes are absolutely fantastic when they come on, you know, every single one of them. The 15 today, the 5, the other 6 who didn't get game time today, and the boys at home. We've just been immensely proud of everything they've done over the last, I suppose we're 12 months in it now, but realistically just probably a month or two really, you know, so they've been just unbelievable for us, and you know, they've done Galway so proud.
But I suppose the message is early days, a lot more still to come.
Yeah, well, we're not looking forward at the moment. We just try and gather ourselves now in the dressing room there. So, you know, and actually Limerick were stronger in their quarters. Directly after the water break, they have a net positive 10 points in each of those quarters, as opposed to their start and the start after half time. So we knew what, like, when you're playing Limerick, you have to target every minute, which actually shows, you know. So so we didn't necessarily know to actually go straight at them from the word go, but we tried in all our games. We did against Tip, we tried against Wexford, you know, so it isn't that you can take your foot off the gas at any particular time and just concentrate on the start and then hopefully then cruise through a game. It just doesn't happen that way with the quality of opposition.
We're going to talk about the Waterford game now, but before we do that, Cyril, just on the point about the water breaks, in a post-COVID world, we don't want to see the water breaks continue, do we?
I wouldn't think so, no, like, because they're definitely disrupting the game. The boys don't need them anyway. Like, you know, I know it's to do with health issues, but like, we don't need them hopefully after the COVID, because like, it's disrupting the flow of the game. You're making it's more like, you know, it's more like volleyball or basketball. You call it time out. Like, it's 4 quarters, completely different. You could be in the flow and you start off again, but like, it's very unusual. Even in Club and County this year, you'll find after each water break, usually, you know, the team that's under pressure takes over for that few minutes. Next thing, it's gone very quick. It's a different schedule, Reid, and you can time it. You can burst yourself for the quarter. You know what I mean? It's not a 35-minute or 37-minute game. It's 17. It's a different ball than what I expect to see it going. But look, the boys, you have to have. That's what it is at the moment. Like, and you know, like we've had very high score this year, which is very unusual from all sorts of angles, whether it's to do with the ball or what. Like, it feels a bit lighter, and the rims are very nice and light, and it's a beautiful ball, but it travels like a rocket. Like, so might look at that ball, but like, the scores have been unread from all angles in all games, Reid.
Yeah, we've certainly been treated with the quality of games, and no more so than the game on Saturday. I think because there's so much love for Waterford from neutrals out there, Cyril, it was one of those performances where it looks like they're in a bit of trouble, and all of a sudden they roar back at the start of the second half in particular.
Yeah, like, above all teams going, like, there were 9 points at one stage down against Kilkenny. At half time there were 7 down, and like, you'd be kind of saying, well, Kilkenny don't lose these, but just show you, like, hurling is an unusual game. Like, 6 or 7 points in hurling it looks big, but it's not. And now in football it'll hold you, but not in hurling. And like, you have lads playing out of the skin. The likes of Stephen Bennett this year has taken over the free duty. This year under Liam Cahill, the Waterford team are allowed to attack. They're not all defensive. They're like pocket dynamos. Like, you look at, you know, say Jamie Barron midfield, you know, up and down the pitch. Brilliant half back line. Colin Lyons from over his shell. Tides Worker, always brilliant, and Kevin Moore. And these guys flew into the sky through cautions to the wind. Now, here's a team that was in a straight jacket for a long time, kind of being coached and kind of played to a system. Now they still have a system, and the coming draw is a bit like Limerick, but like, they are attacking. But the big thing is that the likes of Stephen Bennett, Austin Gleeson, these guys are stepping up front. And Brennan, a guy there, they were 1-5, I think, to 3 points down with the Brennan Montgomery. Had a fantastic game. And Jack Fagan, like, who I saw playing college, like, you know, he's fitting in. But they're having a cut at it. And the boys in the full back line, they had a hard job last day. There was only 2 in there a lot of time. We had Prunty and Nulty on both, say, TJ Reid and Richie Hogan, 2 all-stars, 2 hurlers of the years. And as it settled down, they got on top. But it was their enthusiasm and their kind of throwing caution to the wind, I thought, that won it. And their athleticism. A bit like, you know, you look at the wing-backs, say, Lyons, going up the field, like, attack and running. The same as Kyle Hayes. You saw Kyle Hayes, say, for Limerick yesterday. He left the Galway lads for dead. And Paddy referred to it there. Like, Galway are moving on. The pace has gone out of the lads. They're fit. But like, the Reid, the zip has gone out of some fellas. And that comes with age. But the likes of, when you see the likes of Kyle Hayes run into the pitch and go on for an overlap, and the same with Colin Lyons, they're the kind of the new kids on the block, and that's what they're bringing to their teams, this kind of enthusiasm and freshness. Now, Waterford are playing on all rollers, kind of cylinders all over, whereas Limerick haven't yet. That's why I'd be afraid of Limerick, in the sense that they really haven't, while they've won all the matches yet this year, they haven't fully picked.
Waterford maximising their potential basically at the moment. Just on something you said there, Cyril, why is this system less of a straitjacket than the Derek McGrath system, or why is it more effective, and why do you think it gives them a better chance this year than, say, in 2017?
Well, like, Derek McGrath got them there when he set up that system. They're still doing a lot, but you have Tyler Walker back in the pocket, playing the deep, playing the sweeper, but they're good. They've developed it, but I think they've got maturity and they're allowed to attack. Like Stephen Bennett seems to have got a new lease. They're all kind of they're scoring, which a forward loves to do. Hutchinson has come on, and they're all kind of scoring. Like in the old system, they're still cutting back and helping, but they weren't setting up the scores. It's very hard in hurling to contain. Like Galway tried it yesterday to contain Limerick and did it kind of well, and you'll stay in the game. But to win it, you still have to attack. You still have to get the scores on the scoreboard, and it's hard to do that when you're containing the whole time. And you have to be very athletic, very, very fit to it. Now Waterford are, and so are Limerick. So you probably have the two most athletic teams in the country in the final, and you have this year you have the two best teams. And I said, like, Limerick would have been favourites all along, whereas Waterford have been the dark horses. Like, and again, most neutrals would love Waterford to win because they haven't got that many All-Irelands, whereas Limerick have got one, the not one lately anyway, you know what I mean? But Limerick, as you say, they're hungry from last year, and they really feel that they're kind of left one behind them last year, and they're out to prove it this year.
Paddy, you talked on Friday about the positioning of TJ Reid, and how well did Kilkenny do versus what you thought they were going to do?
I think TJ Reid was masterful again, wasn't he? Really, what we were saying is he'd be in a mix of positions. That's what I felt, and I really felt he was in the first half. I don't think anyone really said to themselves, "Well, I'm going to step on him and I'm going to mark him." I think they tightened it up relatively speaking in the second half, but I think that's because he had so much latitude in the first half. He was playing in the wing, he was playing in the centre, he was playing in the corners. I think it's gone to a stage where Kilkenny know they need him in the match. More than, we'll say, in Henry Shefflin's day, they had 6 forwards and it didn't matter who was in the match because somebody would produce. But now they rely so heavily on TJ that they let him roam and move and trust, and I think it's a good tactic because you can trust him to get into positions every day and read the play. His reading is unbelievable. For his goal, he was the only one, and he was moving to the ball. I see a lot of forwards, they come and they stand under the break of a ball and they're hoping that it just pops out to him. But he seems to be able to just jog. He wasn't even sprinting hard, jogged into that break of the ball and went through. But every time they needed somebody to stand up and catch a ball, he caught it, whether he was moving to the wings, whether he was coming in behind their half-back to catch it. I thought it was just an unbelievable performance. And, every year it's actually getting harder for him. He's getting that little bit older, and the team is probably, you couldn't say they're improving that much more. And what he's doing, I think, is just probably one of the best few years of any career you'd see.
Yeah, I still think his well, it's not getting any easier for him. That I think there's probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 seasons left of him at this level because he's such a specimen. He looks after himself so well. It's his job as well. You can see that if he doesn't get any injuries, if there's no back injuries or if there's no hamstring injuries, that we've seen what Richie Hogan's back as how that's curtailed him to the number of starts that he's had over the last number of years. But we were talking before the show started about this. Potentially, at some point soon, it's going to be the end of Brian Cody. Do you see that potentially happening now, or will he come back for one more?
Oh, I'd say he'd come back for one more. This has been a short season. Knowing him, he'll go home, he'll congratulate the other team, and he'll say, when you lose, that's what you have to do. Take it on the chin and drive on. It's still only a game. And you see, it's a short season this year, and it starts again very early. So I would think he'll go back and, refuel the batteries. And you see, Richard... what you call DJ Carey isn't in there that long with him. Our leader is Martin Comfort. They're new on the block. They're still only starting. So, McGarry is there for a while. I would think they'll drive on. They weren't that far. It was still touch and go. They could have been down. They were lucky not to have been down to a point at one stage. And they're very, very hard to beat. And, TJ is still scoring. I don't know. What did he score? Did he score 110 or 111 from play? But he's still, he's a brilliant player. As Paddy said there, he hasn't got the stuff around him that he had before. But look, they're always very, very hard to beat. No matter how you go about it, they're very, very hard to beat. Aren't the force that they were before, which they couldn't be And I would think he'd give it one more year anyway.
Yeah, Paddy, you feel the same?
Yeah, I think so. I still think he's phenomenal. I do think they're struggling to switch a little bit over to a more modern style. As we said before, you can't keep harping back to the old teams, but they had several players in their forward line, possibly like Limericks half forward line now, where you could hit the ball any way to them, and actually the worse the better because they committed defenders, whereas now they're finding it that much harder to win ball up front. So he is finding it difficult. I was thinking maybe the other day, Eddie Brennan isn't in another job at the minute. Would it be a great kind of double team to have? We've seen how Eddie Brennan has worked with Laois and the modern take on hurling that he has, and with Brian Coley's toughness, and maybe at some stage there'd be a nice handover there, but things rarely work out as smoothly as that. And I think Brian is probably his own man, but I certainly see him hanging on for another couple of years. And I actually think he's done a great job in the last 2 years with what is actually there. And no disrespect to the players that are there, but I think there are a number of teams with more quality at the minute. But the only thing I'd say is, watching the match the other day, TJ's still, top form, but you'd look at Killian Buckley, probably not moving as well as he had before with a few injuries. Pádraig Walsh wasn't dominating as much as he would have other days. They have a rookie full back line. They're still in that period of transition. And even Colin Fennelly coming on as sub, like, does that dent his confidence in the next couple of years, or will he kind of get to the stage where he says he has enough? But when that happens, you're starting to leave massive holes in the team.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Sorry, George. Just to clarify, so you think Eddie is definitely the number one successor here? He's ahead of DJ and Shefflin in the pecking order, Paddy?
I don't think he's ahead of Henry at all. I think if you could get a Henry Shefflin, I'm sure he's the next man that'll step in. But he has, he's doing very well in life. I think in terms of the Sunday game, what he's doing, does he want that aggravation in his life? I certainly think he's ahead of DJ Carey. That's not that DJ Carey was such a masterful player, but he has been around the college scene. But I don't see him as modern a manager, of what I've heard, as what Eddie Brennan is. And I think he's shown a lot of the traits that other young managers have shown, the Shane O'Neills, that type of manager in the last few years. So I think it would be Eddie Brennan. For me, looking at it right now, I think it's changed as the year goes on, but looking at the situation, I think Eddie Brennan would probably be a good next pivot.
All right. Cyril, I want to ask you about Liam Cahill, because that is a phenomenal managerial performance to get that team, who basically hadn't won a championship match in Munster since 3 seasons effectively, to be in an All-Ireland final now. It's testimony to his drive and his ambition and his ability to bring that team with him, but also, it's the tough love maybe that group needed at this stage.
Oh yeah, very good. Look, he again, like Paddy there referred to, be kind of the modern manager. Now, look, Liam felt very hurt at the time. He felt he was in line for the tip job, and then he didn't get it, and Liam Sheedy got it and won his All Ireland. And this is going to go down his CV. You're talking about who's going to take over Kilkenny next. If it falls right for Liam Cahill, if the time falls right, like the time frame, he's the next tip manager. And he's done a fantastic job, himself and Devin below there. They work hand in hand. And at a lot of college matches which have been at during the year, there'll be no one happened, really, only maybe 5 or 6 for a few parents. He's been with the Waterford lads involved. He's been at all these matches, watching all these young fellas play, which shows he's hungry and he wants to do it. And made his statements early on, left off a few lads that people thought that would be left off the panel, and didn't just either buy into it or buy out with it. And I know that from the Water boys that they really love him, but the thing is that he's allowed them to play, kind of off the cuff. Now, they have their systems, they're playing off the cuff, and I suppose they're getting their breaks, to the long time since they won the match in Munster, and even to get that victory over Cork, it just kind of lifted them, and just shows when you get confidence. Big thing in hurling, they're all good hurlers, the confidence is unreal, and as I referred to Bennett and but the lad midfield, Jamie Barron, he's like a pocket dynamo going up and down, left and right. The energy levels of them. When things are going well, that's inclined to happen. So, look, it's the neutral that loves them to win that final for hurling's sake, but it's going to take a mighty effort to beat Limerick.
Yeah, no, for sure. Cyril, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Paddy, before we let you go, your book, I haven't actually chatted to you about your book, Up in the Air. What's the age group?
It's like the reading age itself, would be an 11-year-old, an average 11-year-old, maybe a good 10. A 9-year-old, but I think there's an awful lot there for people going up the age groups. I was hoping that there wouldn't be much of a limit on it, and a lot of adults have read it as well, and I suppose they're coming back with good feedback. So that's kind of what it's aimed at. So
the book is called Up in the Air. It's a hurling story, I presume.
Yeah, it's a GA themed hurling story. It's just basically figured around this, the captain who wants to be the captain of his local team, Glenstown, and they want to win their county final. And I suppose it's supposed to be a simple story for that 11-year-old, but certainly there'll be a lot of messages in there about leadership and about teamwork and empathy and stuff like that I suppose I see as a secondary school teacher that we could see, and maybe mental strength and resilience that we're talking about. They're all buzzwords at the minute, but I suppose I thought of this 3 or 4 years ago, and kind of went around in my head because I saw it so much, and thankfully it came to fruition now. So it's been very well received. Probably I got a bit of a shock maybe over the last couple of weeks how well it's been received. So
Great.
I suppose I owe people a debt.
Well, they can all go out and buy it. Where can they buy it?
Well, www.paddystapleton.ie if you're not in Tip, because that's most of the distribution in shops is in Tipperary. So I'd say my website is probably the best place to get it, but certainly all the big towns in Tipperary have it as well.
All right, well, great stuff, and hopefully if you want to get it in time for Christmas now would be a good time to do it. Paddy, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Congratulations on the success of the book as well. So that's Paddy Stapleton, Cyril Farrell giving us their thoughts on the weekend's hurling. We'd love to hear from you. 8:34 this morning. You can get in touch on WhatsApp. That's 087 9 180 180.